we won't start
Well,
the
it's so
official
many
thing.
things.
Yeah, we won't start the official thing, but even if I just cut clips of this, it'll be good.
Perfect.
Yeah, but the packaging is for real. Like the packaging,
Oh
you're like,
yeah.
this is the shittiest packaging I've ever
You're like,
found.
this is not what I ordered. Like I saw something on Amazon and I ordered it and it came in this like shitty packaging and this is not the item that I requested. But it is. You're always getting what you ask for, but the way that it shows up in your life is not always going to be in the way that you expected. We want transformations to feel like rosy gold, easy peasy, but no, I mean, for like the most common example ever is going into the chrysalis, right? You just become this freaking goop. You just go into darkness. And something I was talking to my clients about yesterday was we have to get comfortable with the death and rebirth cycle. It's all of life. Right now it's turning into
Mm,
summer here, kind of skipped spring, but it was really rainy, really wintry. Like so many grapes like did not get fully harvested and like the wine production is down. But now that all the flowers are blooming, there were some cherry blossoms here recently. I was just walking around and just thinking, wow, everything gets reborn, but like everything.
mm,
And that's also
mm.
reflected in the menstrual cycle and so many different things. But as a human who's going to potentially have a lifetime of, let's see, who knows, 80, 100 years or more,
Right.
how many times am I going to have to like die throughout that process to really find myself?
Dude,
It sucks, but it
it
doesn't.
sucks. It sucks and it doesn't. And the more you resist it, the more painful it's going to be. It's like you can either suffer through the death or you can accept that this is a natural part of life on earth. And
Yes.
it's like, okay, now I can actually just move through it with knowingness of like, and appreciation, right? When you know it's actually going to end. And this is something I've told so many of my friends that are in like weird situations with their partners. I'm like, listen, I never got that. This is the last week you're going to be with him. So while you're in
Mm,
it, just soak up every moment because if you know it's means to an
yeah.
end, just be there. Just be there and be like, I'm going to enjoy it while it's here because it's not going to be forever. You know what I mean? And I think that
Yes.
when you're aware of the constant life and or yeah, life and death cycle, just this constant cycle, you can actually just be more present because you know everything is going to come to an end. You know what I mean?
Yes. And really understanding that death and life are so interconnected. Like if I
Mm.
reject death, I'm actually rejecting life too.
Wow.
Because yeah, when I'm going through like my death before my rebirth, that's part of my life. So as I reject this falling apart process, I'm rejecting literally my life, which is why it feels so bad to resist it. Every single emotion we resist, the reason why it feels bad to not accept them is because they are all forms of life.
Yeah.
Any life that we reject does not feel good to us because life supports that which supports life. And so when we are in support of life, which is energy, whether that be in the form of rage, anger, sadness, anxiety, pain, we reject all that there is. And so we suffer. And so welcoming all of these energies into our life, which is, I think, really what healing is. Healing is saying, okay, my mind says no, but my soul or something higher says, yes, this is okay with me. Yes, this is leading to my growth. Yes, this is leading to my evolution. Once we accept and integrate that, then nothing hurts as bad, right? And it doesn't mean you don't go through the death and rebirth cycle. You do. I feel like I go through it like every Mercury retrograde, right? I think we've gone direct. I already feel this like lifting of the
Newness.
veil.
Yeah.
But because I have accepted death as part of life, the way I move through that is completely different. I've learned now that you can experience contrast without suffering, right? Comparing and
Mm.
contrasting is a natural part of life. And I think about when you were a kid, like the first essay you ever wrote was like to compare and contrast. And it wasn't actually to decide which one was better or worse. It was just to see, like, can you actually notice like different characteristics and comment on the similarities and differences, not evaluate them or measure them, but can you just
Mhm.
notice that? And so all throughout my life, I'm seeing like darkness, light, higher, lower, and even like looking at the scale of consciousness, it's so easy to think like, oh, these are worse than these, right? Oh,
Right.
joy and enlightenment is what I want rather than pain and anger. But all of these are just fluctuations of the same thing. Like it's all the same. And so
It's all source.
experiencing it's all source and it's all self-created. It's like we create
Mm.
everything. It's actually pretty amazing when you think about it. Like even your death cycles, you're creating that too to experience it, to rebirth yourself. Everything is
Mhm.
being created for your own evolution. And I think when you know that, it's like it makes it just a little bit easier. It's still hard because we're in a human body and we have density,
Totally.
but yeah, it's a human experience is trippy.
Truly, the only thing that's gotten me through like this massive, just like dark night of the soul is like the 5D perspectives of like looking at my life from not even just above me, not even my higher self, like above my higher self. Sometimes I go even one, level up. I'm like, I'm going
Yeah.
to look at my higher self looking at this human playing this video game out and see her
Yes.
crying in her bed and be like, she's right on schedule. She's doing it. She's on the human plane, feeling the feelings, and that sucked for her to go through, but like literally remembering that this is a video game and we can
Yes.
change the reflection on the screen at any point in time. Like I just watched a TikTok of like Dolores Cannon. I don't know if you've gotten into her work.
Love
I'm
her.
just now dabbling. Like today I started her book, and she really says like it's just a video game. Like all these people that you see around you that you don't know, like they're just extras. And it's like, wow, when you really realize that you are just the main player in your own video game and you can
Yeah.
actually manipulate what you see at any point in time, you hold immense power because you realize that you no longer are just kind of like just moving through life and somebody else is like controlling you. It's like, no, I am the controller. And when you become the controller, now the entire world of possibilities opens up, right?
Entire world. Literally, you're only ever seeing yourself. That's it. This
Mm,
entire world. I feel like my body is just this like moving projector screen. Like
yeah.
I just move myself and then see different things being sort of reflected in my awareness. But I'm a huge fan of Dolores Cannon's work. And I actually last year, something that really shifted me was going to see someone who was a level 3 QHHT practitioner.
Okay.
Insane. So Dolores Cannon's work essentially puts you into a very deep sort of trance
Yeah.
hypnosis. This was 6 hours. Like I had no, that's the crazy thing about time too, is you realize what is it? What's 5 minutes? What's 6 hours? I have no idea. I'm under for 6 Earth time hours, experiencing literally this sounds so insane. Oh my God, I'm hearing myself talk, but my soul was just traversing through like different what I can only describe as dimensions, worlds, timelines,
Mm,
and realizing that this is just one experience of my consciousness. And it's honestly really dope. I'm like, this is so cool that I'm witnessing this. And I love the video game example you use because when I think of exiting the matrix, it's really just, you don't leave the video game. You just realize like this shit's open world. Like I don't even have to follow like the objective of the game. Like I can literally just like wander through the fields and like do whatever I want and
yes.
like do side quests. And what sort of renders on the screen is what you choose to see depending on the decisions that you make. So if I decide I want to go like that way, for example, then that's what begins to be rendered on the screen. I see what's over there. But until I go that way, it's kind of like in a void of possibility. I don't
Hmm.
see it on the screen, but that doesn't mean that it's not there. What I experience is based on my literal choice. And so what
Oh
I'm
my
constantly
gosh.
talking to my clients about is how do we become a conscious choice maker, a conscious decision
Yes.
maker? Because so many of the decisions and the ways that we turn and go and things that we do, we're not making them. We're just like robotically repeating actions. I'm like, who decided that? Like, why did you
Yeah.
go there? I'm constantly asking why? Because we're always going to get to the root of what energy is creating that action. Like, what is motivating that?
Hmm.
Is it my fear and my smallness, or is it my expansive possibility knowing self? Right.
Hmm.
And the energy that you live in is so much more important than like what gets rendered over there. Right. But we get so obsessed with what is over there. And I'm like, what's over there is just more of you. Like, that's it. So what you're experiencing through you in this moment is way more important than what's over there. And I mean, it's fun. It's fun teaching people that really everything comes by and through them. It's so awesome because I basically get to teach people that you have all the power and they've just been completely, totally hypnotized into believing that they have no power at all. And it's just
Yeah.
like the greatest realization when they like get it. They're like, wait, this is just me. Like I'm just projecting shit. Like I'm just experiencing myself. And I'm like, yeah. Like you don't even know that I literally exist. Like just think about that. Like, how do you know I exist? They're like, I don't know. Cause like I'm like, I'm literally like a figment of like your imagination. Like I'm not even like a real person. Like I don't even know
Hmm.
that you're a real person. All I know is what I'm experiencing through my
Wow.
life, through my eyes. I don't
Yeah,
know what's
like
real.
the people around you could literally just be like video game characters. They might not. Oh
Literally.
my gosh, my mind is blown right now. I've also decided I'm just gonna, this whole thing is gonna be the podcast. We'll do your
Perfect.
intro like halfway.
Perfect. Perfect. No, this is so good. Like The authentic connection and the
I know.
flow is always the best. I always find that if we don't hit record, I'm like, oh, the best shit wasn't recorded.
I know, I know. Well, off of that, we're gonna introduce Sam probably halfway through, guys, but there's too much right here to cover. Um, do you believe that you're God?
Well, it depends on what your definition of God is. I'm very careful how I answer that because I could be saying different things to different people.
Okay.
But yeah, what I would say is I'm the universe pretending to be Samantha Chung. That's what I would
Yes.
say. Yeah.
I
I
love
don't like
that.
to I'm very like iffy about the way that I use the word God because even
Totally.
me, like I was so indoctrinated to think so many different things about that
Mhm.
word. And I was a very huge I rejected religion very intensely as a child because I was raised in the Christian Bible Belt.
Mm.
And what I saw growing up was such separation. I didn't call it that as a kid, but it was
Mhm.
if you don't believe what I believe, like you're gonna die and go to hell. And I
Mm.
just remember thinking, I don't think that's right, guys. I remember as a child questioning
Same.
that and not thinking that that was right. I didn't think it was correct to be shamed for what I believed or didn't believe. And my parents were really good about not really raising me in a religion. So these were literally just concepts that were introduced to me at some point. And because of the ways I heard people talk about God, so to speak, I just thought, yeah, that's not for me. So I rejected it for a really long time, which actually kept me from my spiritual growth too, because I kind of saw them being related and they are.
Mhm.
And I had to get past a lot of that skepticism and the distortion of language to really see the truth. And now what's really interesting is I can really gain a lot of truths from a text like the Bible. There's a lot of good shit in there. But because I was so distorted to think that it was like not right, the way that people were interpreting it and distorting it made me think like, oh, like that's not right or like that's not me. But I'm seeing it's the people who are distorting the messages. The message is pure.
Yeah. There's so much energetic weight around the word God. And even myself, I tend to like to use the word like source or even universe, even though it's so much
Yeah.
bigger than the universe. It's just like there's less energy connected to that word.
Yeah. It's more
So
neutral.
it's more neutral. And ultimately, source is neutral.
Source is
So,
completely neutral. And I think the reason why that's so important that you said that because God has the energetic weight of negativity because we learned that God was punishing,
mhm.
right? That there was a yeah, that there was this punishment energy to it. At least that's what I
Mm,
learned as a child.
me
Like,
too.
oh, if you don't do this, then like God will
It's
punish you,
fear
right?
based.
Fear-based, control-based, guilt-based, right? Everything was used to control. And so learning words like, yeah, source, universe, it gives me that gateway to neutrality. Yeah, and I don't experience as much internal rejection. But the more I expand, the more neutral the word God becomes.
Hmm.
So that's been
Same.
interesting because, yeah, I've been seeing a lot of other creators and writers using that word. And I used to actually, when I was reading books, I always crossed it out and wrote the word source every single
Wow.
time. Yeah, like I was reading, I'm trying to think of what book I was reading where, well, like even Course in Miracles, it uses God all the time. And so I would go through it and I would just cross it out because it just, as I was reading it, I had this like entrained response to the word. And so I was like, I need to neutralize this. I need to neutralize this. But the more I've expanded, yeah, I haven't needed to neutralize it as much because I see through the energetic distortion that's not really there. And so, but I know that other people are still burdened by that energetic weight and I don't want to confuse them. So that's why I don't use that word in my content a lot because
Totally.
people like the old me, right, would be like, oh, this bitch doesn't know
Mhm.
what she's talking about. Like, oh, she's a Christian or something like that. And it's so close minded, but I don't know. I love that version of me too because she just didn't know.
She didn't know. And it actually makes sense that the higher you ascend, so if source is really all that is, which is unconditional love in
Yes.
its full essence, then the higher you ascend and the more conscious you become, the more you become a match to unconditional love and neutrality, right? And if that
Yeah.
is where you're going, then it makes sense that everything else underneath just becomes more neutral to you. It's like
Yes.
even the worst case scenario in your life, something like what I
Yes.
went in through, you're just like, oh, well, to source, he feels neutral about this, even though my human feels
Mm,
so angry and so mad and so hurt and she's grieving. Source is just like sitting up there in unconditional love, like, yep, I know it's actually just bringing her back home to me. So this is actually the
Exactly.
best thing that's ever happened to her versus the worst thing. And when you can actually hit that higher 5D perspective, maybe it's, 7D perspective, who the fuck knows?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, wow, you can actually really change your life. You know what I mean? Like you can actually really find internal peace, which is kind of the point of
Kind
spirituality.
of the entire point. Something that I tell people, or it's even like in my bios, is I always say, I'm transforming your perception, right?
Mm,
I'm not actually the one changing your life. You're doing that. But I'm really just mirroring back to you what your perception is giving you, right? What type of experiences are reflecting back the perception you have about yourself in the world. When we transform that, everything changes. Like we're just transforming perception. And like you said, oh, the 5D perspective or 7D perspective, whatever perspective that is, it's just a perspective shift. It's just looking at the same thing from a different angle. And so I don't believe my mind anymore when it says things like, oh, this is terrible, or like, oh, this is a bad thing, or this shouldn't be happening. I'm like, why do I think, why isn't it? Why is it happening though? I was actually just recounting to my clients yesterday that I was in a hotel lobby recently, and this person was not giving me my key to the room because apparently my name wasn't on the reservation and my friends had checked in earlier but weren't at the hotel. And so I was trying to explain, like, I have the email reservation and everything. I have the text message from the person with the name on file and all this stuff. And she just was, power tripping it out and was like, you're not getting this key. Like, your name is not on the reservation. And I was getting so upset. And the thoughts in my mind were like, this shouldn't be happening. This should, like, she should be letting me into my room. And all I could hear were these shoulds. And now I know when I hear those shoulds, I shouldn't really take them so seriously because my mind doesn't actually know what should be happening or shouldn't be happening. It's taking a wild guess. And so I like escorted myself to the lobby bar to sit there until my friends came back. And I sat there and thought about what if this was supposed to be happening though? Like what benefit and advantage do I get to believing that it shouldn't be happening? Because in that scenario, I'm just arguing with life. I'm just
mm.
competing with what is already going on. And so I'm creating my own suffering. The suffering is not coming from the lady not giving me my key. It'd be easy to project it onto that. But the suffering is coming from my rejection of the experience that
Thinking she
life is
should.
giving, thinking she should. And that's what I keep trying to teach my clients is like, it's not the neutral. Like, as soon as I was about to like call them, get the manager out, like that part of the know it all was about to come out. And then I just stopped and noticed myself and was like, I don't think this has to do with the lobby receptionist. Like I could feel all of this rejection and like resistance and like anger inside. And I was like, I don't think it's her.
Mm.
And that's such a beautiful moment to have with yourself because all of life, if you think it's her and you think it's that, then you're totally powerless because now I have to forcibly change the will of another person. I can't do that. That person has free will. So once again, escorted myself to the lobby bar and was like, okay, what am I believing has gone wrong? And how do I know I'm right? Like, I don't believe anymore that my mind knows that it's right because I'm like, maybe you're freaking wrong. Like, maybe if I got the lobby key and like left the hotel any earlier, like a cab would have hit me. I don't know. And Source was like,
Right.
no, 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 don't give her the key. Don't give her the key. Right? Like, make her ass sit in the lobby. Or maybe it just wanted me to realize, like, yo, like your expectations are a little bit need to be checked. You need to check them right now. You need to check your expectations and like go with the flow of life. And so, yeah, you're right. It is the belief like you should do that, like that should happen. And so, when we argue with life, I think maybe it was Louise Hay who said this like, you lose 100% of the time, or maybe it was Byron Katie. You lose
Mm.
100% of the time when you argue with life. And so, my life has become so much easier when I've been able to, like you said, take that neutrality perspective. I'm like, how can I see something as simple as this lady not giving me my key as completely neutral? It's not something that is not supposed to be happening or is happening to me, for example, right? Because then I'm a victim of the circumstance. It's just life doing life. And I get an opportunity to observe what I think about it. And my emotions tell me that. It's so cool. Like my emotions literally reveal to me what my subconscious is thinking about a situation. And now I get excited about that shit. I'm like, what is in there? What is in there? Like, what are you thinking? What invisible rule do you think has been broken? And how can we dissolve that so we can find peace again?
Oh my gosh, so good. And this is reminding me, have you read the book, The Surrender Experiment?
By Michael Singer.
Hmm.
Yes.
My
Yes.
grandpa, my spiritual grandpa.
Yes, everybody's spiritual grandpa.
Yeah, so I actually just reread it. I finished it last night. So I reread it for the second time. But I mean, the premise of the entire book is listening to the voice in your head and realizing that it's always trying to fight what is. And then
Yeah.
once you just sit back and let the hand of the universe,
Yes.
really take charge, you're actually going to manifest more than you could have ever consciously manifested, right? And that's something that I love that you talk about a lot in your content as well, of like the fact that when you're actually in flow, when you're actually on your highest timeline, the things that you're going to manifest are even freaking better than anything that you could have consciously thought you wanted.
Yeah. And also a lot of what you consciously think you want, you were just trained to want anyways. Like your soul wants way more than like a fucking car or like a house. Like it's honestly kind of lame when you think about the things that people want. And what's been so interesting is, getting lots of people into a group container and really getting curious about like what is it that we want? And it's like all the same stuff, which is not wrong or bad, right?
Mhm.
But I'm like, you guys know that there's like a totally like higher frequency of things that you can want and desire, right? And they haven't even thought to think past that because they're so stuck on the attachment to some arbitrary object, right? But I think that what I'm teaching people now, and it's so funny because it almost feels like I'm like a D manifestation coach these days because I'm not, I am helping you get what you want, but by helping you realize that what you want is not the thing, it's a
Right.
feeling. And so sometimes we take the focus off of the thing that you want and they're like, wait, but like, how do I get the house? And I'm like, no, forget the house. It's not that you can't get the house. It's that the energy that you are embodying, the state of being that the house you think is going to give you, that's way more important for us to focus on. Let's do that part because that's the energetic part. And then
Mm.
people forget that the law of attraction is law. Like you don't actually have to worry about it. You can embody the state of being and then know by law it will take care of itself. Yes, you will take action from that aligned place, but if that's what you're doing, you don't have to worry about the result like ever
Mm.
because it's only going to match what you are radiating. And so that is what I'm trying to reverse engineer for everyone. Because when we go to outcome, when we outsource every feeling to outcome, we're always behind the eight ball. Like we're never there. We're always going for the next carrot. And especially like with money, right? Money's infinite. Like we can't stop counting money. So when does it stop? And that's why I don't like to use the word enough because what is that? Like, oh, I just want enough money. I just want to be good enough. What is that? Like, how will you know? How will you know that you've gotten to enough? What's enough for you is not enough for someone else. All of these are relative, right? So I've just banished the idea of enough. I'm like, everything's good. Everything's all right. Like there's no enoughness. Like everything, whatever you got is enough. Like you are enough, whatever. The amount of money being enough or the amount of stuff being enough, it's so arbitrary and it constantly changes. Like as you put on like a
Mm.
new lens, you reach like a new level of yourself it changes again. It's amazing working with clients too, who they have businesses that are multiple six figures. And they're like, oh, I don't think I don't have a real business yet. Like, I feel like I still need to whatever. And I'm like, you're making $300,000. What are you talking about? I don't know. Like, I just feel like it's not organized. It's not enough. Like I need to do more stuff. And I'm like, babe, it's not going to be enough at 3 million with that attitude.
Yeah,
And they
and
don't get it.
that's actually one of my qualms with the coaching industry, and not the industry in general, but I guess just like how we speak about it. It's like the thing that you did this month is now the ground, right?
Yeah.
So like it's that's awesome that you hit your first 50K month, but now that's the
Yeah.
floor. So you better hit 60K next month or you're not successful anymore, It's like it's never enough, as you say. So what words do you use to replace enough?
So for me, when it comes to, I don't think of income goals anymore. That's something I've completely banished. And I agree with you when it comes to the coaching industry because it's like, here's how to have your first 5-figure month. Like, here's how I'm like, what are we talking about? For me, it's
Can
like,
we talk about something more interesting?
I'm like, how many people can I help? That's always going
Mm.
to be my intention, which is why I was like, okay, podcast, perfect. It's fucking free. Like, if you find it amazing, free, valuable resource for you. And most people like free stuff, online free community. amazing, more free stuff. And then of course I can create other products that are going to be more streamlined for the people who want to do this work more intentionally, maybe in a group container, or they really want that guidance. Maybe they're ingesting the information through podcasts and stuff like that, but they're like, how do I like practice? Right. Okay, then we can create containers for that. And those are going to help other people too. But
Mhm.
I just don't think about how much money I'm going to make because I don't know. Like, I just know that my happiness doesn't come from it. It seems so obvious to me. But what I will say is that you need to sometimes go on that journey because we're so deeply conditioned to think that it will bring us that. And I think that I had to go on the journey of getting to a certain income level. I used to be in real estate and I was obsessed with deal number. I was like, when I hit this number of deals, like, I will know that I have like made it. And I remember I got there and I just was like, so that's it, huh? That's it. I was like, that's it. All I actually felt was this like deep pit in my stomach of how like, oh my God, I have to repeat that next year because it was a shame, fearful part of me that wanted that. And so getting it, anything you get from scarcity just feels like more scarcity. It's like, oh
Right.
my God, I hit this number of deals. And now like, what if I don't do the same amount next year? Like, does that mean I'm a failure? Like, how do I maintain this? And then, like you said, your ceiling becomes your floor. And so
Right.
then you're chasing a new ceiling constantly. And I know people who have millions of dollars and they're still like, oh my God, how am I going to pay for my boat? And I'm like, wow, this shit never ends.
It never
This shit never
ends.
ends until you like
Yeah.
break, until you exit. Right.
Totally.
And sometimes people have to go on that journey to realize it. But I feel like I'm trying to like nip it in the bud for my clients. I'm like, I will tell you from personal experience, no, it doesn't work that way.
But I think that's how you also know that you mastered the vibration when you get the thing that you wanted and you feel almost nothing. Like I
Yeah.
remember when I hit my first 10K month and I had like hyped this thing up so much, but then
Yeah.
I practiced the vibration of being in it so much. I was just like, I kind of feel like I'm such a good coach. I already hit it. Like I had practiced that
Yes.
for like a couple months. I'm like, I feel like I already hit it. Like I'm really good at what I do. Like I was just hyping myself up
Yes.
inside.
Yes.
And then I hit it and I like looked at, my little accounting, spreadsheet where it was like, ooh, 10K. And I was like, looked at it and I was like, why do I feel nothing?
Because you were already there. You're already there.
Right.
I tell my clients all the time that what I call true manifesting is it's actually very subtle. It's like
Mm,
you notice it in these like small moments that you're now in the life that you've been thinking and dreaming of, but because you've been embodying it the whole time, now it just matches your energy. Like everything
mm.
matches your energy. The people in your life, the money in your bank account, it's law. So if you embody that energy, everything will just kind of like seamlessly move to match you. And by the
Wow.
time you're embodying that energy, it doesn't surprise you. And you should be actually a bit concerned if something in the outer does surprise you and it does really shift your vibration because that just signals an attachment, right? It just signals like a pedestalization of something, which is always going to be ripped away at some point. Like you're going to have to come to grips with that at some point. And so if I get like excited about something, I'm like, ooh, like what did I believe that granted me that I didn't already have? Like that's interesting. Like
Mm.
what sort of illusion was in there that I was like totally like buying into because that's what it
Wow.
is. We buy into the illusion of more money. We buy into the illusion of more followers. We buy into the illusion of like whatever bigger business, more scaling. And it's all a big rouse. It's like there's nothing over there. And so when you basically stop playing the game without the rules that we've been conditioned to, you start playing like your own game, right? You rewrite the rules and then those sort of arbitrary things fail to hold any weight. They don't actually keep you in a conditional state of suffering where you need to get it before you can feel something. It's very true. As soon as you get it, it just reflects back to you who you have been, the energy you've been holding for so long. I remember listening to, I love Catherine Zankina. She's the manifestation babe.
Mhm.
And I was listening to one of her podcasts, I think it was a couple of years ago when her business had hit 7 or 8 million. And her husband, who works with her, had asked her, babe, so the business hit 7 million. Like, how do you feel? Like, do you feel any different? And she was like, I feel the exact same that I felt in 2016. And I was like, that's it. That's it. Because 5, 6, 7 years ago, she was like, I'm a multiple 7-figure CEO. What do I do in that energy? These are the types of things that I create. These are the types of things that I say and believe about myself. These are the types of things that I provide. And everything is just moving to match her energy. That's it.
Mhm.
And then when it
Mhm.
does, you're like, cool, that's a reflection of me. That's all that is. And
Wow.
so people don't even realize too that their suffering is a beautiful indicator of how powerful they are because that too is a matching of your energy.
So
And
how
you
do
may
you
not.
turn that around?
Well, number one, by becoming aware that it's happening,
Mm,
right? Because if you think that everything is happening to you, well, then you can't change anything. You're totally victimized, powerless. And the greatest part about thought work, with mindset work, whatever you want to call it, is becoming aware of thoughts create my state of being. My state of being creates how I feel, and it actually motivates how I act and the results that I create. And so if I can change my thoughts, I can change my state of being. I don't actually need something outside of me to change my state of being. If I need something outside of me to change my state of being, then I'm always chasing. I'm always behind.
mm,
I'm never there. Like the quickest way to get there is to go through your state of being, your energy, your feelings. And also, I should say too that because we constantly suppress our negative emotions, it's also really hard to make contact with our positive ones too. Like when you reject one thing, you reject everything because everything is the same, just different levels of density. And because we're a society of very deep emotional suppression, like, oh my God, the most successful industries are the ones that make sure that you can suppress that successfully, right? Drugs, alcohol, shopping, gambling, like all of these things are so effective, at least until a certain point. We don't feel anything. And so when I ask someone to tap into the energy of how would it feel, to be walking around with $1 million, how would it feel to have freedom? They can't find it because they've rejected all of their feelings. We're just like these numb human shells. And I'm like, no, our feelings are so powerful. Like we're like literally walking electromagnetic fields, and you've completely cut yourself off from your own signals. And so what's so difficult about healing is, yeah, I want you to make contact with the feeling of joy, abundance, creativity, but we're also going to make contact with fear, shame, guilt, right? And we don't want to feel that. But until we can undo the programming that says those emotions are bad, they make you bad, we're not going to be able to feel the fullness of ourselves. And so healing is really trippy because you will experience deep love for yourself. I truly believe that if you knew the totality of who you are, you would just never stop crying. You would just be constantly filled with light and love. And honestly, you would like combust. Like it's not fit for the human 3D world. Like you would
mhm.
just literally be up there. You would just be source, but you're in this dense body. So you can't possibly fathom the amount of love that there is. But when you go to experience that, you also widen the window for all of the other emotions. And so people tell me initially, wow, I'm feeling so good. And then I'm like, kind of expecting like in the next week or so or a month for them to have like a really low moment because they've opened the window to that, because all feelings are connected. You don't get to cross out one and not the other. And so, yeah, you also experience, like you talked about earlier, that dark night of the soul. Because if you want to experience the expansion, you've got to know what's opposite. And so
Mm,
if you can know that, when I'm going through a really dark time, I always tell myself this has an equal and opposite energy. That's the nature of this universe. Nothing can exist without equal opposites. Everything is dual, everything is contrastive. And so knowing that gives me so much peace, because this darkness cannot exist without lightness. And my suffering comes when I believe that there is no light. There is no light at the end of the tunnel. There's only darkness. And that's an illusion, because the darkness can only exist in the absence of light. Like it
yes.
literally is not there. And so when I'm experiencing it, I'm like, okay, this is painful. This is not comfortable. My human self is suffering right now. But the higher part of me knows this is just the opposite of something else that is truly expansive. And so sometimes you just got to wait through it and know that there's something else.
Totally. And what's something that's been helping me a lot, my audience already knows I'm in a little transitional dark night of the soul phase. It's like just knowing that this experience is temporary. That has been just so helpful for me. Is just like, I have really like crazy ups and downs of emotions at this time in my life. Like I can be like so happy and then I could be like crying on my bathroom floor like the next hour. And it's like when I'm crying on my bathroom floor, I allow myself to be as sad as I can be in that moment, because as
Oh,
I
yeah.
accept the totality of the depth of that sadness, it actually moves through me quicker. And I know it's just temporary. I'm like, I'm not going to be crying on by my bathroom floor for the rest of my life. It's just this moment. So while I'm here, let me just be here. Let me just be here and feel the depths of the sadness. And then it's so crazy because like I've been really mastering feeling my emotions in this period of my life. And it really
Hmm.
is just like feeling it fully and I'll be crying and screaming and really just like somatically releasing whatever I'm feeling. And all of a sudden, it's done. It's like, it's out. It literally feels like the battery is drained and there's nothing else to feel. And I just like breathe and I'm like, all right, I'm good. Anybody want to hang out now? Like I
Yeah.
could literally like go hang out with a friend after that because it's like it's
100.
all gone. And so I feel like there's so much power in just allowing yourself to be where you are, even in the most painful of moments or times, and saying, I'm going to be okay with this and I'm going to fully accept it because I know it's temporary. And in that, you
Yeah.
actually transmute that pain to peace and acceptance for the whole experience.
And I think this also comes from experience, but you eventually get to a point where you know that pain leads to peace. But if
Mm.
you haven't experienced that enough times, then you might be disillusioned into believing this there's only pain, there's only pain. And maybe even welcoming and accepting and surrendering to that pain is like, oh my God, gonna lead to like a lifetime hole of pain. But it doesn't. It's like taking a deuce. It's like, yeah, it kind of hurts as it's coming out, but then you feel relief. Like,
Mhm.
and then you know that though, like when your stomach hurts and you have to go to the bathroom, you're not like, I gotta keep it in because it's gonna like really hurt. Like you're like, that getting it out is the only way to experience relief. Like you can't keep it in. Keeping it in makes it worse.
Yeah.
But that's what we do with our emotions. We're like, oh, I feel this. Oh my God, I just feel this anger. Like I just feel this anxiety. Like I'm not gonna let it out. I just don't want to express this right now. It's like all you're doing is creating like a serious blockage, right? Like think about like if you don't take a shit, that's a physical blockage, right? And you feel pain. We have energetic blockages too, right? So anything that doesn't go out stays in and causes a blockage. And then that's what kind of leads me into also like the whole clearing of energies and stuff too. Whatever you believe in, whatever energy healing, even like acupuncture, like how do we like move this energy that's literally stored? And we just don't think it's there because you can't see it. It's there. It's totally there. The energy is the realest thing there is. It's literally what makes up this microphone, this computer, me, you, this coffee next to me. It's everywhere. And so it exists and lies dormant in our bodies too. And that's also why we get triggered because we didn't release something. And so I know that when I get triggered by something, I'm like, oh, that's just like hitting against the thing that I still left in my body. It's not actually the lady won't give me my room key. It's that this anger was like not fully let go of. And like that's what it's bumping up against. Because when you release all the anger, when that happens, there's total neutrality. Like there's no need to react to that. Your anger that's locked inside is reacting to that. And
Mm.
so that has been so empowering to realize is like, oh, like there's like a thing in me that's like left over. And how can I, yeah, really let myself feel my emotions to the fullest depth with which by the way is very scary at the beginning because a lot of us have been so shamed. Oh my God, like so shamed into thinking that crying is bad, like getting angry is bad. Like
Mm.
some kids were even put into timeout for like getting upset. Like,
Mhm.
so getting upset is like, okay, there's a withdrawal of love there. There's a non-acceptance there. And our deepest fear is non-acceptance. So we'll do anything to be accepted. We'll suppress anything. We'll, instead of crying, we'll have a drink, right? Instead of having a tantrum, we'll, I don't know, like have a smoke, whatever. And so all of these energies get stuck. And it's really no surprise to me that we are becoming a very ill country. Like people are mentally sick, physically sick. That's all connected, right? And I'm like, what are we doing? Like we're not humaning properly. We're not feeling the emotions and the energies that are here. And I have sat and wondered for months and years of my life, like, why do I feel these things? Like, why do I have sadness? Like, why do I have shame? Why do I have guilt? Why is this here? And then I have to get to the point where I realize I guess I have them for my evolution. When you look at every single other animal, like why it has webbed feet or like why it runs fast, it's like there's a purpose to everything. There's like an evolutionary advantage to literally everything. And so even if I don't know the purpose of this emotion, I don't know why it's here, it must be somehow that it's for my expansion and evolution. It must be. Otherwise,
Mm.
it just wouldn't exist. And so rejecting them is rejecting me, is rejecting myself. And so I truly think that healing is, yeah, like you said, just experiencing totality, like everything, because God, source, universe wanted us to. Like, hey, you're going to go down there and you're going to experience whatever you want, like literally everything and its opposite. So you can know,
Mm.
that. And we were like, okay, cool. Love it. Love all those experiences. Like, I'm gonna have so much fun. They're gonna be like, but don't be confused. Like, you might get disillusioned down there. You might forget, and you're like, no, I'm not gonna forget. And then you get into a human body and it's like really distracting. And then you fucking forget, but you forget to remember. So it's okay.
You forget to remember. And, if we didn't completely forget, I feel like the opposite wouldn't be true when we return home and remember who we are. It's not going to be as good, right? Like it's going to be so amazing because we forgot who we are. And that's why even as humans, when we start to remember, it's so good
It's
because
so good.
we're like, like I know for me, spirituality has always been like, this makes everything make sense. Like I remember when I was younger, I was like, this doesn't make sense. Why? But why? Because it doesn't make sense. Like, where's the sense in it? Where's the logic? I'm a Virgo moon, so I like to understand the logic
I love
behind
that.
everything. And it's like everything makes sense on a soul level when you take
Yeah.
in the universal concepts. It's like, oh, you're feeling pain because this is how you grow, and you're on earth because this is the highest way that for your soul to learn. And honestly, I got to give it to humans because earth is fucking hard. Like me and Aaron, both
Yes.
of our friends, is like, we always talk about, we're like, you know, I'm going through just like a really hard time. I'm like, Aaron, can you imagine if I had to go through this and I didn't have like all of my freaking, lineup of like healers and psychics and like, everything that I work with just to help my human understand. Like humans go through this and they have no tools and it's freaking hard. Like
Oh
humaning
my
is
God.
really difficult. And I just feel like we got to like, pat ourselves on the back because we go through
Yes.
a lot down here. It's crazy.
It's the perfect place for your karmic development. Like it's literally perfect. I had a conversation once with my friend Nick, and we were talking about how are we ever supposed to, like, do you ever think that Earth will become completely loving, completely unconditionally loving? And
Mm.
I actually said, I don't think it's supposed to, because like that's what we're supposed to learn while we're here. So we have to experience the absence of that in order to learn it. If it was just how things were, then we wouldn't know any different. We would just be like, yeah, it's like a utopia. It's like a completely unconditionally loving place.
And there are
But we
planets
have
like
to
that.
experience non-love. Yeah, yes. Yes, exactly. And we probably came from one of them. We were like, yo, let's like go to Earth. Like it's gonna be so trippy. Like it's kind of ghetto down
Mhm.
there, but let's go. And we get to experience, yeah, the absence of it, only to learn what it really is. And I love that you said we remember or we forget to remember, and how that's so sweet. And I just think about how, yeah, we already knew all this, right? We knew that we were total love and total possibility when we came into the world, but experiencing it after forgetting it is like way more awesome. Like
Mhm.
way more awesome. I feel so grateful to just the like veil being clouded over my eyes and just completely forgetting who I am and just being this like a robotic brain, this mind of mine, because remembering who I am has been like this reunion. Like, when you haven't seen someone in so long, and it's so much sweeter because of that distance. I literally just saw two of my like long distance best friends last week, and sometimes I don't see them for years. And just the way we hugged and like the way we spent time together was like, oh my God, I fucking missed you, dude. Like, this is so good. And I was thinking about how sad it is that like I don't get to see them all the time. Like I wish I did. But then as I was flying home, I thought, man, that was actually so amazing because I don't get to do that all the time. Like because I don't see them every day. Like we were together constantly and it just just talking and talking, talking. But if I updated them on everything that was going on in my daily life and activities, regularly, then it probably wouldn't feel like that. And so I felt this deep gratitude for the space and the
Mm.
absence so that the fondness could grow. And yeah, I think that's what we're doing here on Earth too, is we're just forgetting and we're fucking around and finding out that, oh my God, like that knowing was always there. I just ignored it. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know who I was. But now that I know, oh God, I'm gonna make sure I teach people, because
Yes.
that this is the sweetest gift. This is the sweetest knowing.
And when you know who you are, like truly know who you are, you want everyone else to know who they are because it's
The greatest secret.
so sweet and it's activating. Like before we started recording, me and you were talking about how amazing it is that like we get to just connect with all of these, just truly amazing beings. And both of us have a mutual friend, Erin. And one of the biggest things Erin's just really taught me is she's like just she's just the embodiment of like
Light.
unconditional love and like knowing who the fuck she is. Like she whenever I'm with her, we walk around and like just crazy shit happens. Just like the people we meet, the things that we get access to. Like we just get like we're treated like queens every time for no reason. And this goes back to like making our own rules, is she's just like, Kristen, when you know who you are, this is what you expect. So start to expect this. And she's like, this
Yeah.
is just the rule I have for myself. I expect the best. And so we've been playing with like, whenever we go on trips, we're like, okay, what are the rules? What are the rules that we're playing within
Oh,
the universe now? And it's like,
I
we're
love
going
it.
to get it. We're going to get invited to the coolest things. We're going to meet the highest vibrational people, and then we'll play with it. And we're like, source, show us. And then like source is always just like, game on.
Yeah.
And we're like, we do it and we go through the trip and we both like leave and we're like, what the fuck just happened on that trip? Because it's so much better and juicier. So it's really about remembering how powerful you are, and you get to create the rules to your reality. And one of the best rules that I feel like I've created for myself that has helped me just get to where I am in my business is I have this rule that like the rules don't apply to me. Like truly I have that rule. It's like
Mm.
the rules don't apply to me. Oh, everyone has to go to corporate America to make money.
Nope.
Oh, that doesn't apply to me. Like everyone has to, like literally there's so many, like even during COVID there was all these rules. I was like, those don't apply to me. Everyone has to do this certain thing to get this certain thing. Yep, that doesn't apply to me. Even with like coaching certifications and things like that where people
Same.
can put themselves in boxes, I'm like, I don't have to do that. And when you
I love that.
I'm like, yeah, not for me. But when you really operate from a place of just creating the rules, you get shown the reality that reflects that back, where you don't get in trouble for doing whatever you want to do, and you do get this special treatment, and the rules just don't apply to you because you make your own rules.
I freaking love that. The rules don't apply to me. That is such a good rule. But what I want to add to that is if you're not creating your own rules, then you got to really think to yourself, what rules am I following then? Like,
Girl,
like,
yes.
like whose rules am I leading my life by? And what the fuck? Like someone just made these up. These are
And
literal
who made them
sentences.
up? Who made them up?
Exactly. Exactly. I was telling my client the other day, and my clients get to know me very well. And we were talking about social norms. And I was like, well, you know me, girl. I don't like social norms because social norms are not really norms at all. They're just someone decided it was a norm for them. And then other people agreed unquestioningly. And then it became a norm, but it's actually not normal for most people. And so if it is a norm, I want to get really curious about it and question it and basically decide, like, do I want that for myself? Right. So
Mhm.
anything I'm seeing accepted by a wide number of people or groups, I want to ask myself very carefully, like, would I choose that for myself? Like if I had agency, which I do, would I choose to include that in my, like you said, set of rules? And there's a lot of things I've just completely thrown out. I'm like, no, like you said, doesn't apply to me. Nope, not that. Like it doesn't apply. And I was telling someone else too recently, like if you're not creating yourself, like who's creating you? Like, like literally you go, I think awakening is like the journey of going from created to creator, right? You're like a molded version of yourself and you've been following a set of rules that maybe your parents learned or, culture and higher society, whatever taught you. And then you get to a point in life where maybe you don't like the output. You're kind of like, I don't like my reality. I don't like my life. I don't like myself. I think that's the biggest part. You start to not like yourself. And then you kind of get curious and you're like, huh, like, is this what I want for my life? Like, I love when people start to ask themselves that question, especially after they've achieved what seems like traditional success. Like, they've done all the things, they listened to the parents, like, they got the job, and they're like, wow, is this like really going to be my life though? Like, am I
Mm.
really going to sell houses for like the rest of my, like, is that what I'm going to do? Not that that's wrong or bad. Like, you can do anything in this
That
life
is
from,
somebody's purpose, right?
yes, you can do anything in this world from an aligned energy and it would be right for you. But there's a lot of people who are just not doing that. And so when you get to that point where you question, like, is this what I'm going to do? Then you get to start thinking about what would I do though? Like,
Mm.
what would I do if there were, yes, like you said, no rules? There literally aren't any. Like
There aren't.
we just made them up. Yeah, like you said, going to school, certification, this. I'm like, who said that? Who said
Literally.
who did that?
Sometimes my clients come to me and they like ask me all these like, questions of like, well, what do I have to do this? And I'm like,
Yeah.
honestly, nothing.
Yeah,
Like,
I
just
always
do it.
say energy over strategy every single time. I'm like, there is no strategy. There is no right way. There's just the way you decide to do from the intention in your heart. Like whatever you
Mhm.
just, I'm like, everything works. Literally everything works. So whatever feels best to you, whatever feels the least resistant to you and
Yes.
aligns with your intentions, do that. You don't want to do email? Don't. They're like,
Mhm.
"Oh, but email is the most I'm like, "It's not for you."
Who said that?
Exactly.
Who said that email
They're
was the
like,
most successful?
but this is the right way." I'm like, "Right way what?" Like learning that right and wrong are also just constructs has been
Mm,
really fascinating to me. It's like, how do I know what's right and wrong? Like someone just decided that was right, which made this wrong, but maybe that was never right, and which makes this not wrong. And then you start throwing it all out and just realizing, oh my God, like there's literally no actual particular right way I need to do
it's
things.
only my truth. That's the only truth there is mine. And I get to
Yeah.
decide.
You're the creator. Like
Yes.
that's what is so exciting about people coming to this realization. I've been having so much fun with you because I can tell we're just like our frequencies just keep
And we're
rising with
like,
each other. Yeah, we're just like we're just like ascending. But you know,
we're
when
gonna
you get to that,
evaporate soon.
yeah, when you get we're just gonna turn into light. But when you essentially realize that you literally create everything, you're like, oh my God, this is so fun. You know, I feel like I've accessed, and like this is not like my state of being 100% of the time, right? But
Totally.
what I've really accessed is this like, oh my God, like Earth is a playground to experience
Mhm.
myself, to experience anything I want to create. How freaking fun is that? And then you just stop putting all this pressure on yourself to do it right because you're like, wait, that's not even real, right? You just
Mhm.
dissolve everything that you have been reinforcing through, you know, your actions, through your decisions that were never aligned in the first place. And then it really just becomes, yeah, playground is the word that comes to mind all the time because
It is a playground.
that's really what we're here to do. Like stop creating these like strategic, like goal-driven mindset that's like your conditioned mind is just, oh dear, like let's just put that to rest and realize that that was never what you were meant to do here.
The people actually that are making the most money in the world, I believe that they're playing too. Like look at it. It's like the
Always,
musicians, it's like the
always.
entrepreneurs, it's the people who are acting. Like they're just fucking having fun.
Every
And
time.
it's like one rule that I'm installing right now in myself is like the more fun I have, the more money I make, you know? Like it's
100, that's
just
a rule for me.
yeah, like I just want to have fun because I have when I started my business, I had such a corporate background that it was like I was so rigid with myself. It's like I have to work all these hours. Like I have to work from 9 to 5. It's like yesterday I woke up at 10 a.m. and I mean, I'm coming from the West Coast to the East Coast, so I don't usually do that. But like I woke up at 10 a.m. and I was like, this is fun, you know? Like I get to literally just wake up when I want. And it's just really remembering that like the point of being here is to have fun and whatever you're doing, whether it's at your corporate job or building a business. Most of my audience is like wanting to build a business. Like make sure you're having fun doing it. Whatever fun
Yeah,
means to you is the purpose and the way, the only way, because having fun is actually really similar to the vibration of abundance. And so when you're having fun, you're actually in an energetic state to make more money.
I know. It's when you're there, it seems so freaking obvious.
Yeah.
But, you know, I remember when I was first listening to Abraham Hicks, so probably 6 or so years ago, and hearing them say, I'm here to have fun. All that matters is feeling good. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, that is not all that matters. Like, I need to work. Like, I need to make money to feel good. Like, I
That's
was
not
so
realistic.
yeah, like I was so conditioned, but I'm like, no, literally feeling good is the most important thing because it leads to all good things. And so I've completely, totally eliminated any rule for myself that has to do with, like you said, the time I need to wake up, the amount of hours I need to work, because I make those decisions based on how I feel. So some
Mhm.
days it's I need to sleep in, whatever that means to me. It could be 9 a.m., it could be 11 a.m. I really don't care because living by first of all, time is a construct and an illusion. So, like, what even is 9 a.m.? No idea. I'm like, you think it's 9 a.m. right now? What is that? We just made that up too. So, when it comes to like waking up at a certain time or like, oh, I need to work these regimented hours, I'm like, who is saying that inside of me? Like,
Yeah.
who believes that? And why have I been brainwashed into believing that that is the condition for success, right? The amount of hours I work. Oh, industrial revolution. Oh,
Mhm.
oh, like that wasn't even a real thing until like 200, 300 years ago. Like everyone was their own little merchant, you know, with their own little shops in their local communities. They closed the shop when they didn't feel like cobbling shoes. Like everyone made their own decisions and everyone trusted those business owners to make their own decisions. And everyone knew in an abundant way that they were going to get their needs met. Like, oh, the tailor's closed. Well, we'll come back tomorrow. Like, it's not a big deal. And so, yeah, I've completely eliminated all these notions of like I was talking to a client yesterday and they were saying they knew that they had grown because someone said they had come into work late, which by the way, they work in an office that you don't really have to be working at. Like it's kind of hybrid, like you can go in
Mhm.
if you want to or not. And the colleague said, "Oh, you've been coming in late the past few days." And they were like, "What I heard was that she thinks I'm late, not that I was actually late."
Yeah.
And I said, "Yeah, what I say to those people in my head is, ooh, your beliefs are showing because that doesn't actually mean anything. There is no such thing as late. You just believe 9 a.m. is late. I'm just here at 9 a.m. Like this doesn't mean anything."
That's so good. And that's something that my clients, deal with as well, is like people kind of projecting their beliefs on like what maybe their business they're starting or how they're living their life. And I always remind them it's like when people are projecting those things, they're not actually saying what they believe for you, they're saying what they believe for themselves. So that person is saying that if I came in at 11 a.m., I would be judging myself because I'm late. So I'm never
Yeah,
going to come in that
exactly.
time. Like who cares? You know what I mean? You coming in at that time has no effect on that person's life. So
Nope.
it just doesn't matter. It just, and when you really operate from this like higher level of consciousness, it's just like freeing as fuck, truly. It's just
It's
like
freeing as fuck. I love that you said that. And I have a very radical opinion, but I don't ask anyone for advice. Anyone. Unless someone is exactly where I'm going. Like, let's say, like, I'm writing a book right now, and like, I will talk
Mhm.
to other people who've done that before, like, about, hey, like, how did you do this? And like, because I'm like, they have some lived experience that I can learn from. But when it
Right.
comes to like what I should do, nobody gets to tell me that because
Hmm.
literally, when I think about it, if I'm doubting myself as a human and my ability to make decisions, I'm the same as everyone else. Like no one has more knowledge than me. I think that's been a really big rule that I've instilled. Is like no one knows more than me. Like we're all granted like the same access to information. We're all conditioned in like similar ways. Like no one knows more. And so why would I grant someone else the ability to confirm for me what's right for me? Like how else would anyone know that than me?
Yeah, like
It doesn't actually make
mhm.
sense.
Totally. Totally. Oh, I love that. And really when my clients are working on building their self-trust, that's one thing that I cut cold turkey is I'm like no more asking anyone's opinion of things, right? Because
Yeah.
you're essentially signaling to the universe, I don't trust myself enough to make this decision, so I'm going to outsource it. I'm going to ask other people because they know better than I know, right? And that's actually really scary if you think about it, that you think other
Yeah.
people know what's best for you versus you knowing what, like that's just scary to think that like what are you
It
going to
really
do?
is.
Yeah, what are you going to do when it's 3 a.m. and you need to make a decision? Everyone's asleep. You're just not going to make it. You know what I mean? It's just like you have to be able to rely on yourself.
Yeah.
So I love that. And yeah, rules are just crazy, man.
Rules are crazy. And yeah, when it comes to decisions, it's amazing like how many people have asked me things like, should I have another kid? Should I do I'm like, oh my God, like why do you think I would have the like unlimited source of information to be able to determine
Right.
what's best for you? Like that's insane. Like why are you entrusting me with a lifelong decision? Like you need to do an inventory of your life because frankly, you're going to have to live with that decision, not me. Like
Right.
you have to live with that. And I think also too another thing I've eliminated from my life is believing that any decision could ever be wrong because we have been conditioned to think that like there are wrong and right decisions. And essentially if we experience a negative emotion, that means it was a wrong decision, right? Like if I did XYZ and I feel bad, then I'm like, oh, I made the wrong decision. I'm like, no, that's just you having a judgment about that thing. It doesn't mean that it actually was a bad decision because, like you
Hmm.
said earlier, what is the worst thing that happened to me could be the best thing. And that's why, I mean, many spiritual teachers have said this, but Eckhart Tolle in his book, Power of Now, talks a lot about how the idea of good and bad can't really exist because it's so temporal, meaning that when one thing is good during one period of time and then it later transforms into bad or vice versa, how can it be one and not the other? Or how can it be both? It
Mm,
must be that they're neither. And so when I start to believe that a decision is bad, I'm like, that can't really be true because there have been times in my life where I thought something was bad and then ended up turning out to be good, which means that it was only ever my perception of the decision, never the decision itself, which completely and totally dissolves the illusion that any decision is bad. Like I have the choice to believe a decision is wrong or right.
absolutely. And then if you're also thinking things are good or bad, you're essentially buying into like that somebody is punishing you or that you can
Yes.
even be going in the wrong direction, which like you're always creating your own direction and
Yeah.
always, and the purpose of Earth, something that I do think is like programmed into us, is that every experience is to help us evolve, right? So like
Everyone.
everything. So even if you say, even if you go down a road that has more hardship, it might be like fine tuning your vibration in order to hold the thing that you actually want, right? That's something that my clients deal with a lot. It's like a lot of them are new coaches or new entrepreneurs, and then they like experience rejection in their business or somebody saying no to them, and they like think that they're doing something wrong. But I'm like, no, this is priming your vibration, because in order to hold the success, you also have to hold the opposite of that success, which is the
Yes.
rejection.
Yes.
And you can't be a vibrational match to that success if you hadn't really believed in yourself to this standard or level, right? So it's like even the seemingly bad things are actually priming you to hold the better things, but it's just like we have to go through the darkness to get to the light.
Right. And you have the human perception of like, oh, like this means that I'm bad, or like this means that I'm not good enough. And I'm like, no, that's also just a failure of your perception. I love what you said though about how this is priming you, because it's so easy. People give up really so easily. It's amazing.
They
Like,
do.
because we're just conditioned that like, oh, if it's not working out, it's not working out. It's like, no, like you are believing that it's not working out, which is why it's not working out. You could easily believe that it is working out. And I think about this too in the context of relationships, because I constantly am curious about like what determines a couple deciding to dissolve their partnership and then like making it work, right? Like, and it's the perspectives, right? Obviously, there are people who maybe have toxic trauma and like patterns that they need to like work on before they can be in a healthy, loving relationship. But in most cases, it's the perspective that like this is normal, like fights are normal, like communication issues are normal, and like we love each other and we're working on this. And when I talk to couples who've been together for a really long time, it's not that they didn't disagree or like feel like they fucking hated each other along the way. It's like, I just believed that it was always working out, or like that it was always going to work out, and that like it should work out. And it's just interesting to see like the way that our generations change, right? And things are really changing obviously right now. And it's so cool to see so many people deciding to leave relationships because they're actually valuing themselves. And that's a beautiful thing. But we're also not valuing too the beauty of what partnerships offers us, right? Like there's beauty in everything, but it's just interesting to like see like the tides change. And I'm seeing a lot of women, and I think this is really great, really like owning their own worth. You know, we're so conditioned to think that our value is determined by like if we're worthy to a man. That's so stupid. Like I can't even like wrap my mind around it. But so many women are in relationships or pining after relationships thinking about how to be lovable instead of thinking about what can I love in someone else. And that's how we're
Yes.
also approaching business. It's like, how can I get money? How can I create safety, rather than how can I help someone else?
Which
And
is the
all of
heart
these
centered.
questions,
Yeah. The
the
heart
heart
centered
centered,
approach.
right?
Yeah.
And all of these things I realize are just scarcity driven. It's there's not enough money for me. There's not enough love for me. I need to get it from this person. And it's all a lie. And it creates so much suffering. Like believing that there is no love. No wonder that creates so much suffering, because love is all that there is. It's like
Mhm.
literally all around you. I remember I was talking to Erin on my podcast, and she was saying, like, I literally breathe in the air. And I'm like, wow, I'm so abundant. There's so much air in this room. And I was like, whoa, that just shifted something for me, because there is so much air. Oh my God. And she's like, yeah, like it's everywhere. Like it's she was like, air is everywhere. Like it's literally constant. Like, and that's how energetically abundant love and money, which is
Mhm.
really just a representation of that service and heart centered self, right?
It's
That's how
literally
much there is.
everywhere.
It's literally everywhere. And it changed everything for me. Cause actually, when Aaron and I talked on my podcast, I was going through a little bit of a thing. Like I was literally like crying before the episode. And my co-host was like, should we reschedule? And I was like, no. I know she's gonna come in with some like good shit. Like this is gonna be good for me. And you know, it's always that you're like disillusioned by something, you're believing some lie, but it's okay. Like I told my
Mm.
clients yesterday too, like it's not bad to believe a lie. Like that's not bad. Like just because you believe something that wasn't true doesn't make you bad. It just doesn't make it true. Like
Mhm.
believing it just doesn't make it true. I'm like, you can believe with your whole heart that like you are totally unlovable and that you suck and that you're not good enough. But no matter how much you believe it, it will never make it true.
Yeah.
And for as
Yeah.
long as you believe it, you will suffer because it's not true. That's what Abraham Hicks says. That's what Jesus said. That's what Buddhists, that's what they all said. They're like, because that's not true, that's why you're suffering. But you can believe in it all you want. No one's going to
Wow.
stop you.
It's that's I'm like processing right now, because I'm like, yeah, you're right. You can believe something, but it doesn't make it true.
Yeah,
It's,
you can
like
believe anything you want. It
right.
doesn't make it true.
Right. And I think that like it's good also to learn what truth feels like in your body, like learning that like truth actually does feel good.
Yeah.
whatever good is, right? It does feel light. And if you're believing something that doesn't feel resonant, that's probably because it's not true. Or I don't even know. Now we're like in such a high level of conversation. I'm like, I don't know
I
what I'm
know.
talking about.
Okay, we'll get this. Okay, so Abraham, now I understand that what they say is that anytime you are feeling a dense emotion, what
Okay.
you would call a negative, uncomfortable emotion, you are not in alignment with your inner being, is what they always say.
Mm.
That confused me for a really long time in the past. I was like, inner being, like I don't have one of those. Like I was like, what is that? Right,
Where do
but
I get one?
I was like, what is that? The inner being is essentially just the loving self, like the
Yes.
fully loving, aligned self. And so anytime you're out of alignment with love, you just feel the gap. You feel the
Totally.
non-alignment with that. And so if every truth is a relative truth, which it really is, right? Like
Hmm.
bigger, smaller, those are all relative based on what we're comparing, then there's only one actually absolute truth, and that is love. And so the only time you experience like misalignment, negative emotions, is when you're away from the absolute truth. And
Yes.
knowing that is so reassuring because you can always come back.
Hmm.
Like
It's
you
always
just
available.
it's always available. And I think that is what causes so much suffering, is believing that your truth is like outside of you. Like the truth
Mm.
is the money. The truth is the external validation. And it's like, no, like the reason why you feel like shit going after that is because that's not it. Like that's not
Yes.
it. And you have access to it right now. Like it
Hmm.
was never anywhere else. You just haven't, you've been chasing your own tail, is what I say. I'm like, it's right there. It's right. And you've been traversing all across the world to find it, only to realize it was in the fucking car.
Yeah,
It was,
it's with you. And that's even like the same for, when you're chasing love. It's like you're essentially chasing something that you actually have access to right now. It's like
yeah,
it's inside of you. The truth, you are the source of it. You are
yeah,
love, but it's like we think we have to get it from an external thing, but sometimes that external thing isn't even connected to its own source. So we're wanting to get
mm,
something from somebody who is not even connected to their own source when we could just go inside and get that thing, which is like really, I do a lot of inner child work with my clients, and it's like in one 15-minute session, they come in triggered and we change their entire internal state of being to feel safe. Like if you actually think about that, that's actually nuts that with
yeah,
nothing changing outside, we can change everything we're feeling inside. And nothing has
yeah.
changed outside. Literally nothing.
Well, and when you really zoom out, trying to change the outside is kind of like insane.
Fucking
It's like
hard.
hard. You're trying to move fucking matter, dude. Like
Like,
matter is
yo,
thick.
that's
Like
dense.
that's dense as fuck. Like if you go to the source, the energy, it's way easier. I tell my clients, it's like, okay, there's an Indian proverb about this, but if you were to look in the mirror and see a smudge of dirt on your face, you wouldn't go to wipe the mirror. You would go to wipe your
Mm.
face. It's on your face. And so you have an emotion inside of your
Oh my God.
body, self-created, okay? And then you're like, I hate this feeling. I'm going to go get money. Yep. It's like I'm going to get something that we made up as humans on the outside to fix my inside feeling. No, it doesn't make any sense. Like when you
It
really
really
think about it, it
doesn't.
just doesn't make sense. It's like, okay, like maybe I'll go to the source. And so what I teach my clients is we're going to resource ourselves. Like we're going to stop outsourcing everything because actually,
Resource. Wow.
yes,
Sorry.
we're going to yeah, okay. Woo, okay, mind blown. We're going to resource ourselves, right? We're going to use ourselves, the source, right? We're going to go back to this rather than outsourcing everything because it's just harder. And when you think about
Mm.
that, I'm really loving right now the parallels I see between my inner world and outer world and how everything matches. And I've been thinking about like how to create more sustainable like communities and worlds. And it's one where you literally resource the things that are local to that land and community. Like
Mm.
you don't have to outsource and like export and import everything. Like you could just create a beautiful like permaculture basically based on what is there and use that and be totally self-sustaining and abundant. You don't need to go outside. Like you can, but it's just harder and like less effective and like fucks up the environment and shit. So like I am creating an internal environment that is suffering and starved when I go outside. And
Mm.
the whole time I had like everything I needed within my own body, which once again reminds me of the external mirror, which is that, if humans didn't know how to exist with their own human bodies, we wouldn't be here. Like, the idea of having all these modernized like houses and cars and all these things, it's like we existed for many, many, many years without this. We're now just trained to think we can't live without it, but we totally can, which is what we're trained to believe about ourselves. I can't live without money. I can't live without external validation. I can't live without this. Yes, you can. You were just trained to believe that you needed that. Now, there's nothing wrong with going after that, but you can do that with non-attachment, because you know
Mm.
that it's not going to give you anything that you can't resource yourself.
Yes. What's your favorite way to, like, let's say like you are wanting to make more money? We're human. What's your favorite way
Mhm.
to get into the state of abundance internally?
I start to ask that part of me questions first to kind of
Mm.
like dissolve the illusion of the attachment. Like, okay, like, first of all, is this loving or non-loving? And
Mm.
that reveals things to me right away. It's almost like I know immediately, because when I think to myself something like, "Oh, I really want more money," or like, "Oh my God, I was in Vegas recently and I was at a pool party, and like my old craving to get my boobs done came back because everyone had these like really nice perky boobs, and I was like, I'm gonna go under the knife." Like it was just this like old program thought that came back,
Mhm.
because that was something I really desired when I was younger. And then I kind of understood that this is just like a vessel, like this is just like my meat suit. I'm more like what occupies and animates this thing. But it just came back. And as soon as I asked myself, like, is this loving or non-loving? It was so clear. I was like, this is so non-loving. This is so judgmental. This is so like reductionist. This is so comparison, like, to yeah, it just was obvious, and then it almost dissolved right away. Like, I
Immediately.
immediately, because I could see that it was false. I could see that it was an illusion. I could see that it was non-love, and I was like, "Wow, I'm not gonna effing do that from a space of non-love." Now, someone could actually undergo a surgery or a body modification from a place of love. You totally
Mhm.
could, but my particular motivation in that moment was definitely non-loving. It was like, "Oh, like, you don't look as good," and it was just all these program thoughts of body
Mm.
insecurity, which have been, yeah,
Mm.
really hypnotizing for the past 3 decades. Like, it's
Yeah.
so hard to consciously break out of that, and if I was not aware, I would have easily just been, like, sucked into a hole of, like, "Oh, I don't look as good, like, I'm ugly," or whatever. But I was like, "That is so unloving and not true," and that's how I know it's not me.
And another, I guess, like another other words that you could use for that is like almost like, is this an ego desire or is this a soul desire? Is this a desire that my ego wants, or like something that is like, ooh, I want this because it's gonna like almost fuel humanity, if that makes sense. Like if it's ego,
Mm,
it's like it's for myself, it's for the validation of me, it's
yeah.
for my human. But if when it's a soul desire, like even I've had some times where I'm like, I want more money so I can help my family, I want more money so I can be more abundant with my friends, I want more money so I can give more to the world. Like that's a soul desire, right? But if it's like,
Yes.
I want more money so I can show people how rich I am, then it's like, why? you know because you
Yes.
don't feel good enough, so if you felt good enough, then you wouldn't need it and you'd probably have more money.
I know, and it's such a backwards reverse
It's so crazy.
process, because when I work with clients who are really obsessed with wanting to get money, I'm like, okay, we're going to get to the root of like why you want money and heal that so that you don't want money anymore. And they're like, but how do I still get the money? I'm like, no, like you will actually, but you won't need it. It will just be a beautiful
The
byproduct, and
attachment won't be there.
the attachment won't be there. And that is, I literally, and I feel for these people, because I could not believe, like back when I was really fully into real estate, I could not believe that I wouldn't care about the money. Like it's like all I fucking cared about, because I was just conditioned to think that like more money, more worth, net worth, self-worth, they're tied.
Yep.
Right. And then doing the work of untying net worth from self worth, seeing that those have nothing to do with each other at all. Net worth is a man made concept too. Like it doesn't exist in nature. Like we made that up.
Mhm.
Seeing that that could never determine what is truly innate within me was such a trip. But now looking back, I see I can see it from such a different perspective, and I really do feel for it, because that process of realizing like everything that you've based your life and worth around, for that to disappear is really scary. And so I remember at the beginning of this conversation, I think before we hit record, we talked about how quantum leaps and stepping into the next highest level version of you. Oh my God, it's going to feel really chaotic, because your literal mental model of the world begins to crumble. And I
Literally.
literally tell people not to like make light of like mental illness and things like that, but it kind of feels like a psychotic break, like because everything that you know to be true is like not true. And you're like, what is going on? I literally thought that these were the way that things were. And you're telling me that's not how things are. I'm not okay. Like those were the mental rules that I was living by. And the like knowledge that number one, that those aren't real. And then two, that you created your life around them. That's just a lot for the nervous system to
Mm.
handle. Like it does, the brain doesn't like to be wrong. Like we're constantly trying to prove ourselves right, which is why if you believe like better thoughts, then you'll just prove yourself right and have a better life. But it doesn't like to be wrong about that. And so when I was kind of like destabilizing a lot of the old rules, it did not feel good. It did not feel
Mm-mm.
good to my nervous system. It did not feel good to my body. Although I'm sure like the higher part of me during that time was like, this is perfect. This is right on time. Like we are dismantling the old to build the new, or we are dismantling the lie to live in alignment with the truth. But it does not feel good to be told a lie. Think about it. If you find out that I lied to you, that doesn't feel good. Even though you want the truth, you always want the truth, even if the lie hurts,
Wow.
doesn't
Yeah.
make it easier.
It's like the short-term discomfort for the longer-term fulfillment. Sometimes you're going to have to go through that destruction phase, and we were talking about that before. It's like I was telling Sam, like I just went through the freaking most massive quantum leap in my life, and it looked like it was the most chaotic, destructive thing that I've ever been through. Like truly, I don't have nothing in my life, truly nothing looks the same as before. I'm talking the people in my life, the partner in my life, the area that I lived in my, like nothing looks the same. And it was the most ego shattering thing I've ever been through, because life as I knew it was not life as I knew it. It's like,
No.
and it's so crazy because people want these massive quantum leaps and expedited acceleration. But what they don't really get is that in order to have that really massive quantum leap, expedited, accelerative, just ascension journey, it is very chaotic. It's very destructive. It's actually more peaceful to have like a very slow, you know what I mean? Like a
Yeah.
slow, progressive journey versus everything crumbling. Not to say that like my soul just needed this, because I do believe that I'm going to teach this and this is going to be part of, my curriculum, because as teachers, that's what we do. We go through
Yes.
something so we can teach it. However, it's like really just, yeah, I guess there's a lot of chaos that happens when you are on the ascension journey.
Yeah. Well, thinking about it as like a lie versus a truth thing, it's like
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted, okay, like I think about this all the time when it comes to friends knowing things that their friends don't know, and like, oh, should I tell them? Should I not tell them? Like, no, you should definitely tell them. Like, oh, but it's gonna really hurt them. Like they're gonna feel upset. But it's like, yeah, but it's gonna lead to long-term peace and the truth. Like they're living a
Right.
freaking lie right now. Like they need
Right.
to know, right?
Totally.
And when you find out, it's not good, like because you realize that what you believed was not true. You're like, I thought you
Mhm.
were a loyal friend, like I thought this, and I'm being told now that that's not true. That's upsetting to my nervous system. Like
And you're
this is
human.
and you're human. Yeah, this is like rejecting my currently held beliefs, and I'm having to rebuild like my
Mm-hmm.
foundation of beliefs now. And it's also going to change the way I see the world because I have new information. New information is how we learn to see the world differently, but it's always for our highest good. And so, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
love how you said that short term discomfort for that long term gain and
Fulfillment.
peace. And yeah, a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us, we do not like discomfort. And so, actually changing your relationship with that and seeing it as necessary rather than, I think we're really taught to think that discomfort is like an obstacle to our peace, but now I'm seeing it as no, 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 it's a necessary ingredient to it. It's actually not keeping me from it, it's leading me to it.
Yes, I love that. And one of the TikToks that I saw of yours the other day when I was just, on my daily scroll was like you said, if you're trying to get something back, the best way is to ask yourself, how can I let this
Let
go?
it
And I just was
go.
like, girl, yes. Like when we want something back, it's like, it's really about, I mean, yeah, why don't you just say it? Because you said it so much better.
Yeah, I mean, wanting something back is an illusion that there is something out there that you don't have within you anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
so when I say let it go, what you're letting go of is the attachment. You're not even letting it go. Like it was never there. It was never anything. You never had anything. The thing that you wanted was the feeling, which you already have. And you made it conditional upon it, whatever it is, coming back. Whereas when you let go of the attachment of it, you make a reunion with the feeling that you always wanted. And so
Which is
this,
peace, truly.
which is peace. And I think that what people do not get correct and there's a reason for this because it's called the backwards law, is trying to have a positive experience is a negative experience in and of itself. It's so annoying. But the acceptance of a quote unquote negative experience, so letting something go that you thought that you were attached to, that in and of itself becomes a positive experience because you're not rejecting life. Like I said earlier, you're literally rolling with the punches.
Mhm.
You're literally letting something be as it already is. You stop fighting with it, surrender experiment, all of these things. And so it's so hard to learn, and maybe you have to experience it for yourself. But for me, I really did chase happiness in a lot of ways as I was younger. I thought that I needed to try to get it to feel it. And the more I tried to get it, the more eluded I was. Like
The less you feel it.
the less I felt it. And I was like, what am I doing wrong? I'm trying so hard to like get my happiness. And so now what's interesting is what I do is instead of trying to get happiness, I more like do things that raise my statistics of happiness. And so instead of like, how do I become happy? Like, what do I need to do to be happy? I'm like, oh, I know dancing makes me happy. I'm gonna go dancing. And instead of like trying to like chase happiness, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna put dancing into my day, or like I'm gonna talk to my friend, or I'm gonna create a poem, or whatever it is. And then I raise my statistic chances of happiness, but not with the attempt to egoically chase happiness.
Mm,
And I think that is so difficult because we're also raised to get happiness. It's like, oh, like the pursuit of happiness. But even in the word pursuit, you're chasing something. It's like, no, we're not chasing anything. We're not going after anything. We're experiencing what we can create within ourselves in this moment and then attracting more things that reflect that back to us. We're not chasing anything. We don't go anywhere. And I think like our conditioned idea of linear time really messes us up as well. I know we're going everywhere, but when you really understand that there is no time and you're in the present moment at all times, like everything actually comes to you. You don't go
mm,
anywhere. You're not moving along this imaginary line. You're here in the present moment with every single possibility still alive and like there for you. You're just experiencing this one point in time, kind of like if you were to look at a map, right? All of the spaces exist at one given time, but you're only seeing the rendering of the point on the map that you're
where
in.
you are.
So it's the same with time, right? So you're here like in this one point in time, but you have access to all of this like simultaneous time. You're not going anywhere. Like the future, if anything, is kind of moving through you. Like it comes into your direction, it like becomes experience as the present, and then it like moves through and becomes experience as past. So like you stay. Like you are the point of attraction. And so that's what people get so confused. It's like, what do I need to do to get over there? And it's like, babe, abundance is not a destination, it's a frequency. You don't go anywhere.
You
It's not.
change you're who you are being, and then it comes
Yes.
to you. Yeah. And I love you had another really good TikTok. I can't even remember what it was now, but it was like saying like the past and the future don't even actually exist if you think about it. Like they're just thoughts. The only thing that exists is right now. That's crazy to think about that. It's literally
It's
just a
crazy.
it's crazy. I know. It's
It's
like
crazy. You know what? So Michael Singer, our spiritual grandfather, I love him so much. Untethered Soul is my favorite book. And I listen to his podcast a lot. And
mhm.
he was actually saying, he gave me a new thought. And I'm always collecting thoughts, actually. Like I like to think of my brain as like a beautiful museum curated of thoughts that I have chosen to believe. And he talks about how this present moment, just think about the fact that 13 plus billion years led to this moment, however ordinary it is. You standing at the gas station, you driving. And I was listening in the car while I was driving, and I was like, holy shit, like 13 plus like billion years. And like, here I am in my car, just like, this is it. This is what it led up to. It just has to mean something. It's like this is pretty significant. Like all of human mankind and evolution and catastrophic events, and I'm like, I'm just here driving in the car. Like that is.
Right.
He was like, why would you argue with that? Like that's got to count for something, that after all of that, there you are putting gas into your car. Pretty crazy.
Mhm.
And so I like to think of the present moment in that way. And also, yeah, that the past and the future really are just thoughts. And if the future is a thought, then why not think the best possible effing thing you could ever imagine about it? Like, why are we dress rehearsing tragedy? Why are we doing that? You don't have to do that.
Oh my gosh, it's so true. It's like and there's not even really a point in dress rehearsing it. It's like just be where you are. And something that I've been playing with is like because I've been in this more painful period of my life where like I don't really feel fully like myself in any given day still. It's like I always remember I'm like, wow, but you know what? Time moves so fast. Like even what I just said is now the past.
Yes.
And I'm gonna like even just before I know it, it's gonna be time to go to bed and it's gonna be tomorrow. And before I know it, this week is gonna be over. And I just have been observing how even though it feels slow, time is actually moving so fucking quick. So I'm like, damn, I better just enjoy it here because, I'm 28 years old and it's like one day I'm gonna be 35 and no matter how much pain I'm in right now, I'm gonna miss being 28 years old. But all I
Oh
can
my
think
God,
about
yeah.
when I'm being 28 years old is how much pain I'm in. And it's like, really it's accepting where I'm at. It's like, okay, I'm just going to accept that I'm in this space, but dang, time moves so fast. So, since everything's temporary, it's going to go pretty quick. And
It's
one
gonna go
day
quick.
it's going to go quick and I'm going to miss it. I'm going to actually miss it. And in that state, it's like I can have appreciation for the moment no matter what I'm feeling in it.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I actually try to see things not only from my higher self perspective, but my just elderly self, my ancestor sort of perspective, which I guess is a higher perspective. But how do I see this moment of painful growth as a 90-year-old? Like how do I see my 30-year-old self? I'm like, oh man, you were just going for it. You were struggling and you were believing in the illusion, but you were going to be fine. Like you were literally going to be fine in like less than a month.
Yeah.
And so I love that you said that this moment's going to go by so fast because it makes you really, really want to be with yourself. And I think that
Mhm.
when you really know that now is the only moment, it makes you just want to be so present to your experience because you're like, if this is all that's happening, and it is, then by God, I'm going to embrace it. Like, this is all that's happening. Like, I'm going to be here with this moment. Like, holy
Mhm.
shit, this is all that's happening. Okay, I just want to be with myself, whether it's sadness, anger, joy. Like, I want to be fully here. And I think that when you really become present, like you just experience a lot of things at the same time because I almost experience sadness mixed in with my joy when I'm fully present because I'm
Mm.
like, this moment is ending as it's starting. Like, oh my God. Like,
Oh my god.
literally as I speak, it's over. Like, literally as I say this sentence, it's ending. Like, and then you
Right.
realize that's all of life. You're like, literally as something is starting, it's ending. Oh my God. Like, how tragic is that? But how amazing is that? That I'm constantly being rebirthed in every moment and dying at the same time. What is that? Like, I am dying and birthing all at the same time. Like, and then you just
Yeah.
you just fall in love with life. And that's really the game. Like that's the game.
It's actually just a mini birth and death in every moment, if you think about it.
Every moment.
Every
And
second
that's
is a birth and a death.
every second. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, you can change your life this second. There's
Wow.
nothing stopping you. You're literally reborn this second. You can think a new thought this second, and it will change your state of being right now. And it will change the way you act, and it will create a ripple, and it will align you to a different timeline. You will literally change the fabric of this motherfucking universe right now. And it's
Mm,
like, I feel like when you have that knowing, you're like, oh my God, I'm so powerful. Like I can literally change right now. When we think about how we're all connected, I feel like Aaron would say something like this, but when you think about us as like all energy, like you smiling at a person changes the energy of the universe. Like everything you do, say, think changes the ripple of the universe because we are all one. There is no
mm.
disconnection. There is no separation. Like we all come from the same thing and we're all going back to the same place. Like
Yes.
everything you do here matters. And that's why I always say the energy that you are embodying is way more important than anything you create from that. Like those are just
Right.
expressions of the energy that you are embodying. But the energy you are embodying is affecting your state of being, which is affecting your neighbor, your friend, your partner, each other, right? That is going to change so much more than $1 million. Really, $1 million is just a byproduct of you doing that.
Totally.
You, yeah.
Holy crap. My mind is blown, Sam.
I actually have to say, this has been my favorite podcast yet because I feel like you really just met me there. And like I said, it was like that. I have a binaural beats audio that I listen to where it's like, ooh, it just like, I just felt like my body just like lightening up and expanding the entire time. And I am so grateful actually that you have been going
Mm,
through some of your darker times because it gives you access to this kind of information. Like,
dude. I did not operate on this level before
yeah,
it. And I was actually reflecting on that this morning. I was asking Erin to send me like some of these audios that she had been telling me about. And I was like, hey, can you send me these things? And the reason I told her is because when you're actually thinking and living in this frequency of like this 5D experience, so I found that a lot of the podcasts that I used to listen to, I can't listen to anymore because like the
yeah.
information actually feels very at a lower level than I'm operating at, right? So I actually do listen to your podcast quite a bit because you're talking
Mm.
on that frequency. And I was asking her and I was like, wow, it's so crazy how when you're literally thinking differently, the content that you start to consume has to like meet you there, right? And I feel like
Yes.
we totally met each other there. Like the energy was just like pulsating this whole time.
Oh my God. It was so dynamic. And
It
I'll
was
also say too, not just the podcast, but obviously it's all frequency, but like music, right?
mm-hmm.
I bet your musical tastes have changed. And
Music.
I was in Vegas for a girls trip in September. This time I was there for a real estate conference, but we did go out one time. So it's been like 7 months between the experiences. And I went to the club once because, you know, you got to go once. And
Yeah.
I was miserable. I was like, I need to get the fuck out of here. Like
Can probably feel all the entities and attachments.
I felt the darkness in there. Like because
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't at that frequency. I was going through something back in September. Like I had like a whole breakdown and then I was like the trip was already scheduled. It was for a friend's birthday and I tried to cancel and they were like you're not fucking canceling and I was like okay. So I went and I was like I'm going to make the best time out of it. But I was kind of like in a low energy and just like drinking to raise the vibe, right?
Right.
So I was matching kind of the people in the room and I was just kind of
Mm-hmm.
bobbing around with my head to the EDM music and I had a great time. And then this time I just was like yo, the energy is dark in here. And I could
Yeah.
feel myself like taking it on a bit. Like I started to like I've noticed the difference between what my own energy is now and like when I'm being kind of like molded and
Yes.
enmeshed. And I could feel that. And I was like, I need to go home. Like I need to leave. And so I left really early. And the next day I was like, not doing that again. Like you guys can go, but like I'm not going. And I realized when I was flying home, and especially when I walked into my apartment, because I could feel then for real, like, oh, there I am. Like, there's my energy. But that sort of vibration, not that anything's wrong with it, because remember, vibration is all the same, like different iterations of the same thing, but
Mm-hmm.
it just didn't match me. It
Right.
just didn't match me. And that doesn't make it wrong or bad. I was like, it's just not for me anymore. And so I was telling my husband when I got back, I was like, I don't think I'm going back like ever again. Like, I
Yeah.
think that was it. And I've had the experience and you want to create something new now. It's okay.
And it's so interesting too, because I've been like with Aaron in the physical a lot, and it's so funny. Like neither of we'll have drinks, but it's actually like that, even that vibration has vibrated out of our experience. So like we were being met with like, let's have cacao or let's have kava, which is like this like root that makes you feel a little bit buzzed, or let's have like a microdose, let's do some
Hmm.
mushrooms. And it's so interesting how even those like lower experiences, when you're really just living on this 5D plane, they just vibrate out. They're just like, no, you're not a match to that anymore. You just need to and there's nothing wrong with them. Again, like I might have a glass of wine at a wedding in
Totally.
a couple months. Who the heck knows, right? But it's just like
No rules.
there's no rules, right?
Mm.
We can do whatever we want, but it's just having this awareness of, oh, okay, I need to, it's almost just like minding your vibration.
I love that. Minding your vibration. Yeah. And then noticing too, when you are attracted to quote unquote lower things, like I really use my palette to kind of tell me where my vibration's at because I can't crave McDonald's when I'm vibrating at like I literally it sickens me to think
True.
about it. But there are times where I'm like, yo, I want some fries and a fried chicken sandwich. And sometimes there's a part of me that can honor that,
That's
right?
so
But
cool.
also I get curious about it too, where I'm like, am I feeling kind of low and like off? Like what have I sort of been
Yeah.
entertaining in my psyche for a while and like, do I need to do the work? Sometimes I just crave it and that's okay,
Yeah.
depending on the time of the month. But there are times when it's an indicator, right? It's an indicator. And it's the same goes for everything, right? Your relationships, right? We criticize the people that we attract into our lives, especially women who are dating. And it's like, what's your vibe though? Like
Mm-hmm.
what's your vibe? And when you take responsibility for that, you change what you attract. And so that is really what we're doing as coaches, healers, is helping people mind their vibration. And then the universe does the rest
It
because that
really does the rest.
it does the rest.
I love that. Does that feel like a good
Yeah.
stopping point for you?
I feel complete. That was so good.
Oh my
Oh, it's so
gosh.
juicy.
Literally so juicy. I've never done a podcast this long, but like I just couldn't stop. I was like, no, we have to we have to keep talking about this. But Sam, like thank you so much for coming on Alignment Academy. Do you want to just tell the audience where to find you and how they can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can follow me on both Instagram and TikTok. I'm simplifying.sam. And if you want to work with me, I'm actually reopening the doors to my 10-week program, Massive Manifestation. We're launching in June and we're starting in July. So this is the final week of my current cohort, and it's been so transformative. I heard them
Mm.
last night actually tell me, it was the second to last call, and they told me all the things that they've unlearned. Because it's like, it's funny because in most programs you ask, what did you learn? And I was like, no, I want you to tell me what you unlearned. What did you
I love
release? What did you create
that.
space for? And there was actually a girl, and they all said amazing things, but one of them said something about how I just stopped resisting life. I started actually allowing my emotions, and I started honoring my truth. And I literally at the end was about to start crying, and I put my hands into prayer position and was like, my work is complete. Because the success is not like I made $1,000 or whatever. Those are great, and we'll help you get there. But it was just so beautiful to hear like I'm enjoying my life more
I'm
and
happy.
I'm
Wow.
happy now. And I was like, that's what you wanted to manifest. Like, and that's what you always had access to. I just helped you
Mhm.
uncover that. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can apply with the link in my bio. I'm sure there's a link there.
I can link it
And
too.
yeah, thank you so much, Kristen. And this was, oh my God, this was such an expansive conversation. And if you stuck
Mhm.
with us for this entire almost 2 hours, then you are on our frequency, because I think I would have dropped out probably 4 years ago. I would have been like,
Totally.
what are they talking about? Like, they are crazy. I need to listen to like a money podcast. Right. But this was really for the 5D girlies. So if you are still here with us, we totally love
5D
you. And
queens, we love
yeah,
you.
you stuck with us. You are here, and we are making our own rules out here. 5D
Mhm.
queens.
Yes, I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you guys, and I'll see you next time. Okay, so for the intro, do you want me
Yeah.
to just do a I'm just going to